It doesn't seem to have high background noise suppression. It's like it doesn't take up. Like this. Are you in the CNCF slide? If you go into the I can't see looking at the
If you have LinkedIn open, I can paste you the link.
Brian Albert. All right, it looks like my mic is picking up, well, me. And if you talk, you get picked up. No, I mean like on my microphones. I'm just checking because all the background noise, it seems to be okay. But if people around the table feel like they want to chime in on something, then they'd be able to. Yes. If everyone's on the laptop, we could just access it. If not, I can just
You should have the link on LinkedIn message.
Hey there. Just you're the first that I'm not sitting right next to that join. How is the sound from the microphone and background noise and such? Is it horrible?
No, there's no background noise. At least I don't hear anything.
Okay. Okay. Well, sorry, just a sec. Can't do that. Like. Well, Nicola ran off. All right. Hey, Marsh.
Hey, Robert. How are you?
I'm okay. Tired.
Yeah, you in Milan?
Yes,
Awesome.
three of the people on the call now are alone. Or the ones that are on video, actually. I forgot that I turned off the
Yeah.
hide people that aren't on video. Let's see.
All right.
Oh,
So
no.
today is platforms Milanese.
What did you say?
I was saying that I was just making a terrible joke. I was saying it's platforms Milanese.
Oh, here comes the dog. Sorry. Prioritize dogs when they come. All right. I think you're on headset. I'm gonna put on my headset as well, just because background noise for me. It might not. Okay. I don't think my ADHD allows me to sit here in noisy environments and get stuff done. I have my very low. All right. Sorry, I'm just gonna change the sound stuff. Make that work. All right. Now I should be able to hear you well, and you should be able to hear me well. Am I well? I'm gonna try. Yeah. All right. Cool. So we're 4 minutes past, I think. Anyone not joining now probably aren't joining, and they probably either succumb to the we changed time zone thing or can't make it anyway. So good, Marshall. It's just about to share the meeting notes. If there is anything people want to, please write in your name and attendees. If there's anything you want to take into the discussion, we can try to do that. Same time, there is quite a bunch of stuff in here. So let's see what we can get through. I think it's fine if we kick off now, right? 5 minutes back. Yeah, sure. All right, everyone. Welcome to the platform's working group meeting. It's May 14th, it's a Tuesday. I had to check. I'm going to be your host for today. I'm going to try my best, at least, with all things happening as I'm at a conference. And if people want to do some writing, taking some notes, that will be great because I can't multitask. So first of all, if you're new here, we usually take a round of introductions. Is there anyone here that are new and want to introduce themselves?
I can real quick.
Yep.
Sean Alvarez. So I work for ThoughtWorks. I'm actually at the conference as well. And I'm part of business platforms in the ThoughtWorks team.
And it's sitting right there. I can push a laptop, so it's pretty close. Anyone else?
I can also do a quick introduction. Jochen Zehnder. I'm a cloud native consultant from Switzerland working for 56K Cloud. And yeah, I've been now starting to get involved into the infrastructure lifecycle working group. And yeah, there was a lot of talk about this working group. So I wanted to just drop in and see what you're discussing and to see how we can bridge the two working groups together.
Excellent. Welcome.
Cool. I'll introduce myself too, because I haven't been here in a number of months. I'm Kirsten. I'm a technical program manager at Datadog, and I work on a platform team there. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Looks like a lot of familiar names. Is it anywhere else? It's also not mandatory to do introductions if you don't want to. But don't feel forced into talking in a crowded room. All right. Well, welcome to all new people. We tend to go through just the ongoing work first and things that needs to people should take a look at. For now, we have the blog for Paris. I'm gonna try and share my screen. We'll see how that works. Everything's a little bit, you know, best effort. I'm sharing. Is that a very long window for all of you, or is it possible to see everything? Yeah. So blog for Paris, wrap up. I see that this might be a hang up. I'm not sure. I know that I've posed issues and the pull request was pull requested and done pull requested. So maybe this is not something we need to take that close a look at. That might be a leftover thing. So anyway, we have a QCon recap post slightly after the conference review. But there we go. We have the ongoing platform as a product team check-in. A couple people.
Hey guys. First off, thank you, Nicolo. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Nicolo and Robert, for promoting the project. We're starting to get a trickle of signups in. For those of you that aren't aware, this is an initiative around understanding the current state of product thinking in platform engineering. And our approach is to interview platform engineers, consumers, and leaders around the kind of capabilities of the platform, how they approach their work, the practices, and the strategic kind of thinking around the platform. We're not explicitly asking them to what extent they engage in the product thinking side of it. We're going to be teasing that out through the synthesis on the other side of the interviews. In terms of where we are today, so I'll be going through the first interview on Wednesday with a platform engineer from a bank in Australia. I'll be doing that with Oliver. We'll be going through a full cycle of platform engineer, leader, and consumer. We'll see what shakes out of that process in terms of refining any part of the protocol or script before other people jump in. And we've created a research group, Slack channel, PAP research group, for anybody that's interested in participating as an interviewer. I would recommend you follow or you find that Slack channel. It will be locked down soon, and then we'll start kind of promoting it out to those people who actually sign up as interviewers. The purpose of it is actually to coordinate in a more focused way around the scheduling, the feedback and iteration around interviews and the entire process. So, going through it the first time around, I'll be kind of fleshing it out from scheduling to running these interviews to then submitting the interviews in a nice and GDPR compliant way. So we will kind of work out any of the issues in that process so that it'll be easier for everybody else to participate. Does anybody...
Yeah, anyone have any questions about this?
No, glad to hear it's kicking off with an interview this week. That's great. How do we keep up with what's the best way to keep up with what's happening in the progress? This meeting or
this meeting will be the continuous bi-weekly update around any kind of major milestones and updates on the momentum we're getting, kind of numbers around the interviews, any kind of calls for any specific tasks or participation or coordination, but that in a more practical kind of async day-to-day kind of way is going to move to that PAP working group Slack. the research group Slack.
From what I've gathered here, at least, there seem to be a lot of people interested in joining or volunteering, not only for being into you, but also to work with this as a project in itself. So I think there will be more people joining, perhaps in the upcoming meetings, that are interested in helping out with the platform as a product research.
And I'll post out during this call in our working group Slack a sign up form if you're interested in participating as an interviewer.
Yeah, that would be great, because then at least there's an easy way or place for us to point people to go to get involved. That would be great.
Yeah. Post that out.
All right. Anything else on that subject that anyone has? Oh, by the way, did my microphone get better now? I see. Oh,
I think you're just in a tough spot because you don't have, you're at a conference. Oh, well, we can hear you okay.
all right, good. All right, if no one has anything else with the platform as a product initiatives, then cool. There's a webinar series from GitPod on the maturity model. If you're not aware, Abby will be the first person from the working group on that series, and that happens tomorrow. I will be on the second one. I can't remember when. I probably should, make sure that I'm ready for that. Let's see if we look at the webinar series thing. If I can get to work.
I think I'm on the third one with Daniel Bryant.
Yes. So yeah, May 29th is the second one. It doesn't even say, but okay. Yeah, and you're on the third one. Anyway, looks out to be, or will probably be a good show. Deep diving into specific aspects, I think, is a good thing as a whole. I've talked about the platform maturity model today here at Platformsphere, and people seem to like the idea of it, and then also, we got some new ideas on things we could adopt into the maturity model at some point. But again, topic for a different time, I think, with all the constraints in this meeting. So, all right, so there we go. And we have
one of the
various. Yes.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I think one of the challenges with these kinds of things is keeping it vendor neutral, right? These webinars tend to be vendor oriented to some degree. And so I think Lou's done a good job of keeping it balanced, but these things are always tricky, and we should make sure to, make a point of if we're going to promote these things as something related to the group, then we should continue to make a point of staying vendor neutral. So kudos to Lou for doing a great job so far, I think.
I absolutely agree. It's it comes from a vendor, but that it kind of stops there, which is great. So anything that helps promote the material is good, as long as one doesn't kind of taint it, and kind of harsh word, I guess, with sales pitch stuff on top of it. But I think this is turning out to be a good thing. So I agree. Thank you. All right, so we have a couple of discussion topics. We don't have Paul in here who kind of initiated this. So what I'll basically just do is, point people in the direction of this specific issue. Read it, and feel free to comment on it. It's been a discussion going on since January. And without Colin here to kind of give us an update on that in particular, I think I'm not going to deep diving into it. But if the idea of platforms interests you, this is the place to try to contribute to something along that. So we have this topic of encouraging blogs around the product thinking in regards to platforms. Speaking for myself, I try to do that. It's literally one of the things I said on stage today. So hopefully that turns out to people joining and writing some blogs. At the same time, for me, blogs are a hard thing for me to contribute to because I can't write. I don't know, have anyone looked through this issue beforehand? Have any opinions on it? Or said you are interested, at least, but it's a month ago, so we have a couple, just the update on the, I guess, blog post scenario at the moment. We have gotten blog posts submitted, but we don't really have any procedures in how to accept them in a proper fashion. Nothing serious, at least, written down. So what there is a blog post that was submitted that we kind of going back and forth, and we've been back a little bit of backroom talking and trying to figure out how we're supposed to do this. And we're probably going to land on something a little bit specific when it comes to how to approve blog posts, because as we mentioned, we want to be vendor neutral. We don't want to the tag app delivery blog to be like a place where people can sell things. We want it to be on topic, and we want it to be vendor neutral. Not that is the thing that we have seen in the other blog posts, but we don't have a procedure for how we're supposed to do this, because there's only a few of us that are set up as co-owners in Git. And I think this is something we could probably get a little bit more crowdsourced on, just because, like I said, blog posts for me, not ideal. Long wall of text. I'm going to try to read it, but it's probably not going to get something out of me from there. So we need something along the lines of how do we do this? Trying to see, other than you, Mark, if there's anyone else that has commented on this that are here. It looks like it. Does anyone have any comments to this open issue?
I have a comment on the blogging process in general. So there are some policy, like we have some guidance in place for how to write blogs that are tagged community. The goal is to encourage a diverse set of viewpoints. We're trying to keep the bar low, but we also want it to be quality. So that's the balance we're trying to strike. If you need any help getting through the process, so I went through it once. Abby wrote up some of the findings that the notes that I gave to her as some guidance that was in Slack recently, and Atul is got the working group EU post staged, I think. So he's close to getting through the process too. So we're trying to make that easier. The best place to reach out for support is on Slack. People will help and jump in. But the goal is to, I saw a question about blog posts on thinnest viable platform. We don't have any of those. Like it's open season. Like if you have a point you want to make and you think it's useful to advance thinking and the community and the group, then please do propose it. It generally starts as a GitHub issue. And if you need pointers to where these things are documented, just, shout out in Slack.
Yeah, and I think if someone could deep dive a little bit into some of the terms that we kind of throw out there a bunch, like thinnest viable platform, that would be helpful. It doesn't have to be like a full-on article on the subject. It could literally just be a explanation on how that works somehow. Again, a little bit of fact check, a little bit of like back and forth work on ad hoc. async or whatever you want to call it in GitHub issues and stuff like that. But the main issue that I've seen is that we don't have anything in place where it's like, please submit a Google Docs so we can comment on it. And we had an entire a Word document being uploaded and submitted, and kind of like it's more on the like practical end of things, like what can we point people to, and we get kind of the same result every time, which makes it easy for people to collaborate. I think that's kind of what we need. So it's on its way, but yeah, small.
Yeah. So Lou asked in chat, their work in progress posts, are they PRs or in Google Docs? Happy to review. The best way to track the work in progress is through a GitHub issue. But generally speaking, because there can be a fair bit of churn in the content of any post as you're getting feedback from people. We've generally been handling that as Google Docs. So usually what happens is there's a GitHub issue, there's a Google Docs link that's open for comment or at least comment rights for anyone. And then once the document starts to solidify and seems like it's ready to move over to Markdown, then it makes the jump. That's generally how the process works.
Is there a way we can
yeah, go ahead.
Is there a way we can put this in like working group platform, like a automated way to say like every week there's like a thread or something with all the open logs? Because I think trying to scroll through GitHub issues and be like, okay, well, I gotta find.
Okay, that's a good point. Here's
what
I would say happens. You're right. Generally speaking, though, in GitHub, I think there's a way to tag. We're using a tag. I just can't remember off the top of my head how we're using it. But I agree, it's still not exactly easy to keep on top of that. So what happens generally is an author who's driving a post mentions it in Slack, and Slack is where we're getting awareness of this. So when the author is ready, they make note of this, and sometimes there's silence, and sometimes people jump in. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it'd be nice too if there was a way to have like a label that it would automatically send that Slack message into the working group platform. Just maybe food for thought of some automation of like ready for review or something as a label on the issue.
Mm-hmm. I think it's worth considering. The thing that gives me pause is generally speaking, these are blogs that are driven by one specific author, sometimes two, but one specific author. And so I think to some degree, we should expect the author to help drive input where they can, to some degree.
Yeah, and again, that's the thing that needs to kind of be defined as this is the process. You need to do these things, and it's the main issue that I see is that we get in a situation where we kind of have to be not babysitting, but kind of like herding cats. Like someone submitted something somewhere, and then we need to like follow it up, and we need to do all those things to get rid of any open issues. And we have a lot of issues that have been open for a long time that we need to clean up our GitHub so it's more usable. These types of things are also one of the things that's going to help. So we can point people to that and say, could you please follow these guidelines? If not, we'll just close your thing and get rid of the issue. Please reopen again if stuff like that. But we need some stuff in place, and that's the thing we're probably gonna have a little bit more in-depth discussion on. And if that is something we want to have an in-depth discussion on, we can set time up for the next meeting for that.
Oh, one last point on this, because Lou just mentioned one. There's an in progress blog post. This one had the longest lead time of any of them. This is, and there's a link in the chat if you want to see it. But for instance, this is one that's stalled because the original author just hasn't had the time, presumably, to put into it, or the interest or availability. Like it's hard to get these things through, and the challenge here was that we were still working through what the process was. So there's one that's still floating around that could use help if someone wants to push that over the line. But I think to some degree, it requires the original author to help make that happen. So,
yeah.
I also wonder if there's a way to almost not have blogs stall when authors are overly busy, right, or overly committed. Because what I don't want us to happen too is like author writes some really great blog post, needs a couple fixes, right? Can somebody go in, contribute, become a co-author? But also, like, I also wonder if there's some way for automation to kind of like flag, hey, this may be valuable to have somebody to help, you know, kind of contribute to. So that way the content doesn't stall as well.
One of the things that I think we talked about before, at least, is being able to set a certain tag for issues. For instance, like people like need contributions or something, and then try to automate that to come out like into Slack, because again, people are paying attention to Slack. At the same time, all of these things we're talking about now, you know, at some point we're spamming Slack with stuff, and then people start ignoring that as well. You know, it gets a little bit overloaded sometimes. But I think if we had something along the lines of a label or category or whatever you want to call them, but obviously, and we at least address that in the platform's working group website. Like if you want to get in, you know, into it, here are issues that you can look into for various reasons. I think that can be helpful as well. And if that is something that makes sense, we can post something in Slack and get comments back on it. And luckily, when it comes to GitHub issues and stuff like that, it's just we just do it. If no one is stopping us in creating labels and stuff for tags, whatever. All right. There's an influx of people here, so if you hear a lot of people, I'm sorry, I can't stop them. Does anyone have any more comments on this particular issue or discussion topic? All right. Now we have the next one is the platform schema representation alternatives. The long one. This one is kind of funny because this guy is running around here somewhere. I don't see him, so I can't get a comment on him. I mentioned before that I don't like the idea of removing what's already there to move to something else. I like the idea of having the simplicity in like the base model and then expanding on it based on scenarios. This is now a topic that's been going back and forth for a while. Well, with Mark, not that long compared to some of the other issues that he has. And for those who aren't aware, it's I guess a question in regards to having a little bit more details in the platform white paper on the overview of a platform. Because the point being that it's more related to infrastructure and DevOps and not taking into account other aspects and other platforms. So this is a long issue, so feel free to jump into and read it. Marsh, you have a comment? I think you're muted somehow. I don't see him.
Oh, there we go. Try that. Yeah. I was going to say, to your point about removing things, I would agree with that. We've talked in the past about versioning the white paper and what we might do as we need to make changes. So one recent example is that the maturity, we talked about maturity of platforms in the white paper, but that predated the maturity model. And so we've only just updated it with a note that says, here's a link to the maturity model where you can dig deeper. We should have caught that a while ago, but we didn't. But it does bring up the question of how are we going to introduce changes? So that one felt like it was not really removing anything. It was simply making people aware in a call out. But we do need to start planning, I think, for V2 of the white paper. There are places it could be updated. And I think it is a fair criticism that the platform example was infrastructure oriented. And we can probably do a better job of representing at a high level the sort of platform concepts. So I think it's a great issue. I don't think it's an easy one to drive through. So I don't know how we move from here on that. And it's still an open question about the versioning and an update to the maturity model white paper. I don't even know what our timeline would be.
Yeah, it's I think it's time to do that type of run. If we do, I think that's something that we will probably dedicate several of these meetings to that. I would like to see that maybe we don't have anything else ongoing, but at the same time, if we are enough people now, when we started platforms working group, or when we started the collaborative delivery, I can't even pronounce it at this point, but the original platforms working group, we were only a few people. Like getting stuff done at that point in multiple aspects wasn't great. But now we have enough people where I think we can not only dedicate some time in these meetings, but also set up specific meetings to plan a little bit ahead on like how do we go from here. I agree with the criticism that the main issues that I have is going away from a very like easy to read overview to something with a bunch of boxes with like alternatives incorporated into it, and it gets convoluted. These are the things that I think a lot of people struggle with when they kind of get slapped with a lot of technical diagrams and they get lost in it. Like having something that's easy first, and then we can kind of expand on it in a way. Not sure how that's supposed to work. Again, this is something we probably should have meetings on and discussion topics and do some research. I think we can do it. I think it doesn't necessarily have to be that we remove this. We have one picture in entire white paper, and this is it. We probably can have this in a slightly updated fashion, still kind of a little low key, like high level, and then deep dive into aspects, and it still will be a perfectly fine white paper, right? So again, people feel free to read through the issue. We the chairs, we had a talk about driving initiatives and kind of assigning one of us to some of these open issues. There are, and it kind of falls natural depending on, this is one that kind of falls natural towards me. So what I'll do is I'll try to push this forward a little bit, set up something around working on starting to create, the work on the next edition of the maturity model, and kind of what we're trying to solve by doing that, right? So we can start working on that, and I'll spam that out in the Slack channel, and also obviously mention it in the next upcoming meetings. Yes, Marsh.
Awesome. I love that. I like the idea of having chairs jump in to help push things forward. I think it's great. Draw attention to it. I think this issue also touches on one of Colin's interests, which is platform of platforms. True. So it may be we end up breaking out a couple diagrams from this.
Yes. But yeah, and exactly how we do it, not necessarily, but the main issue that we see, or it's not really an issue, it's just like an observation. There's a lot of stuff that gets thrown into the mix here, and then none of the chairs are kind of, not saying that we're doing a bad job, but we don't always follow up everything and make sure that it has a natural drive. So sometimes stuff gets stagnated for a while out of natural reasons, but at least if one of us are involved in any one of these things, we would be more up to date with information whenever one can. Hopefully do not a better job, but hopefully get stuff, try to push it a little, basically. I think this is very well worth the time. Both the white paper and the maturity model. are now, like, I met people today that have used the maturity model at customers as a tool. So, you know, we're getting to that point where people are actually using this. We should, you know, take care of them and try to evolve it as much as possible when we find something that we find flawed. All right. Anything else on the platform scheme or representation alternatives issue? Just a long title. Could have had the author of the issue here, but you know, he's busy running a conference. All right. Cool. Next community thing was this. This is a relatively new one, maturity model risk assessment tool. So it's a proposal to create a platform maturity assessment tool, basically based on the maturity model. To be honest, this is an issue I haven't looked that into. Do we have the author of this issue in here? Sometimes it's kind of hard with these names.
Yeah, I think in chat, someone pointed out that he's moderating a panel. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay then. Let's not spend too much time on that. But again, something to call attention to, look into. I like the idea of this happening based on the deliverables from the working group. I think that's awesome. Again, just haven't been able to sit down and look too much into this. Okay. Speaking of things I haven't been able to take a look at, we have the Tyke API platform maturity model that we wanted to take a deep dive on. I think it's well worth, again, to take the time to deep dive into the maturity model. At the same time, I think that's a thing we need more of the chairs, and perhaps we announce that at a certain meeting we will deep dive into it. So allow people to read up on the maturity model beforehand, so we can have a more fruitful discussion. Does anyone disagree with that and want to talk about the maturity model? Or, sorry, API platform maturity model? So many maturity models. I can say that, at least from my point of view, being able to add things to the maturity model that are specific, like a type of platform specific, to make the maturity model make more sense in that context, I think that would be a great thing for the next step of the platform engineering maturity model. Because again, and not, again, not changing any aspects, nothing like that, but like having the maturity model as it stands, and then slight word change and such based on the type of platform that's going to be put out there. For some, in some cases, some of the wording there is a little bit not like, or ambiguous or whatever.
I think I was supposed to be, we were supposed to talk about the API platform. Unfortunately, I'm in transit right now, heading to a conference. Absolutely to your point, I think we spend a little bit more time on just getting some back on it. Some really positive feedback on this and some clarification, which I think we try to get more feedback. The idea behind the API.
You're very robotic right now, Buddha, just so you know. It's kind of hard to hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right. So, but I'll tag people as well. But I think, like I said, if we can pinpoint one of these meetings or pin one of these meetings to that topic, and kind of announce it a little bit broadly, if you want to say that, just so again people have time to sit down and take a read through it properly and are ready for a proper deep dive. I think that is a good step forward when it comes to the API platform maturity model.
It is already a published artifact, and so it's not like when we were working on the platform's maturity model as a Google Doc, it invited commentary. It's just like there isn't a way in which to provide that, and so that's one of the challenges if this is going to be something that we adopt along the way. That's just at some point we're going to need to get to that if we choose to go down that path, I suppose. And then the second thing I was going to say is that, this is one example, to your point, Robert, that there does seem to be a potential value in applying the maturity model to specific, I'm going to say verticals or kinds of platforms, maybe. Vertical is probably the wrong word, kinds of platforms. And I was just thinking, what are some other, if an API platform is one kind of platform we might apply this to, what are some other examples that we would consider on a short list?
Right.
Did you have any in mind when you said that? I was just curious.
Not specifically. I could list various types of platforms, and it's probably rings true. Again, something we kind of need to sit down and see. Like, is there something with the aspect that kind of diverges if you have a data platform, for instance? I think in some aspect there is, because the wording is a little bit more on my, it's a platform engineering maturity model, so it's obviously taken into account a lot of things that if you have specifically a data platform that might not be the case that you need to prioritize, but there might be similar things that you need to prioritize for a data platform specifically. Again, something I think we can take a more closer look at and have a discussion on. I'm a little bit worried that we have a bunch of these that we kind of feel like these discussion, and we're not that many people, and we have these 2 meetings per month. So there's the ongoing platform as a product suite of things that is happening. I think we could potentially have something else run on, side by side by this, but at some point, I don't think we can have open like 3-4 different projects at the same time, trying to update everything at the same time. So I think since the platform, that's just my opinion, the platform white paper is the oldest. And we have some open stuff there that we could take. I probably would say that we should probably focus on getting a new version of that one out before the maturity model. But I don't think taking a deep dive into the API platform maturity model, kind of learn from that. I don't think that is a bad thing to do anyway. Yes, Mark. You're on mute again.
To your point earlier, and I was apologizing for taking too much airtime today from the group. To your point earlier about the chairs and trying to help, I think, bring attention to, not necessarily drive things themselves, but to help rally people and jump in as necessary. I think that's how you were framing it.
Yeah.
I think that reflects some, a priority for each of the individual chairs. Like, what are you trying to shepherd, and where are you putting your attention? Is there a way to communicate that? Because I think to some degree that reflects the priorities of the group. And maybe I'm not thinking about it the right way, in which case adjust me.
Yeah, I don't think that's wrong. We don't have any like official list of this is what the chairs are, spending their time on, which might be a good thing to have, because people might have questions in regards to various of the things that the working group has done, and instead of, we had this issue with first it was with Josh, who was always hosting everything. Then Abby kind of took over that and oversaw things. So everyone kind of went to Josh. Now that he's sick, everyone's kind of coming to Abby. We want to try to make sure that all the chairs, are used, because we sit on a lot of information and can help with a lot of things. I think having somewhere where we add sort of like specific topics, if you want to call it that, to chairs, I think that could help with that, because at that point it's like, all right, look at the list. All right, if you want to talk about this, talk to this person. I think that would help, but we haven't necessarily looked at it as a at that level. It's more of a, we have some open stuff going on. It would be great if they not necessarily got a push, but like someone to kind of easier access to chairs, basically. Because at some point, it's like a jungle word, jungle telegraph, whatever you call it in English, halfway Norwegian, halfway not. Someone gets a word on something, and then there's like, oh, but this person knows, and it turns out that person didn't know, and then you have to go, etc. So try to avoid that as much as possible, because that's just disrupting everyone's day.
That makes sense to me. I think there are things that chairs may be driving, and there are things that other people are driving that chairs are supporting. But I think any sort of major initiative should have some sort of chair support involvement, just to help guide you and help you along the path. So, yes. Understanding, and chairs are volunteers like the rest of us. Like it takes time, and you have limited resources too. So understanding what you're prioritizing is a good thing, I think, and where you need help.
Yeah.
So that's
all I wanted to say. And I agree with that. And in general, just knowing who to contact is like a big part of like being a chair. Like we have access to some stuff that others haven't access to, but that really doesn't matter in the terms of, in many cases, it's more like questions and like follow-up questions from people. So if people are working with something and they wonder if the CNCF already have something, or stuff that's been talked about in these meetings before, it's usually a process of finding the right person to talk to, and then you kind of have to follow that up. And if everyone just does that, that kind of just helps. But it's a little bit of spreading the load, so to speak. We're trying to do load balance. I had I see there's a lot of stuff in fact, I'll address it, but we had the Kubernetes policy working group member in Slack asking that there could potentially be a collaboration between the Kubernetes project and the CNCF platforms working group on policies, which I think there's always room for collaboration between the Kubernetes project and anything in the CNCF. Let's see. I think the person is in there. No. Also a little bit short notice because this came along like yesterday. I saw messages were posted after I went to sleep to get ready for the morning here on the hall. So I didn't get to see it until like a couple hours before the meeting. So I think that is something we can bring along to the next meeting, perhaps. One other standing thing, we are running out of time. One other standing thing, Mark Burgess, the promise theory and all those kind of things. The idea first was to bring him along to one of these meetings, but we talked about it, and we don't, first of all, these meetings are important. We are, this is where we find out all the status for everything that's going on. Taking the time out of these meetings for Mark Burgess to talk about promise theory, which is not directly related to what we're doing, but it kind of is and potentially could be more involved. And also he's a brilliant guy that can talk about these things for hours. Getting him in here and giving him less than an hour or something, just because we have other things to discuss, is not a good use of his time and ours. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to talk to Mark and see if we can set up some sort of like a new meeting at some point where he has time, and try to record that and share it if you can't join that particular meeting. Not necessarily something you're going to put on YouTube or something, but just for the working group members, so he can take a like he said, he can do an introduction to Promise Theory in an hour, but it's going to be a very light introduction. We can't deep dive into things at that point because obviously there's an entire book on it. So yeah, that's why we're not doing that today. All right. Is there anything else people want to talk about in the last 8 minutes that we have? I know I haven't eaten a pizza here in Italy, and I guess that's kind of prime. So I need to go get a pizza. Well, okay, if no one has anything else, let's see. Stop sharing screen. If no one has anything else, we can just cut it a little bit short. Give you 7 minutes for time back. Thank you so much for bearing with us here as we sit in the noisy halls. And I'll see you in a couple weeks' time, if not before. All right, bye, folks.